Well, good morning. How are we doing? Doing that, sheesh, man. So if you are new with us this morning, that doesn't happen every week. Just so you know, uh, just, when the cat's away, the mice will play. Right? Is that how it works? About it's been a year since the weekend update guys were here last, so it doesn't happen very often. But we try to make announcements as entertaining as we can. Or something. We are in the middle of our comeback series. Actually, I think we're in week 2, so we're getting to the middle. But we're doing an entire series on comeback for our Easter series. So we'll be doing this for the next 6 weeks. And so we are glad that you are with us, whether you are here in person or catching us on the live stream. We are just so excited that you're here. I don't know about you, but I absolutely love comeback stories. There's something just about them. These stories prove that regardless of what happens in life, there's always possibility, right? It's that moment where you kind of look at somebody and you utter those words, you mean there's a chance? And so there's something that is just intriguing. And so I asked people online a couple weeks ago just to give me their best comeback story, whether that was in the world of athletics or Hollywood or just maybe that they have heard in their own life. Just what's some of the best comeback stories that you have heard? So you guys responded well, like you always do, so I wanted to share a few of them. So the next slide has some images for you. So somebody, I think it was Mr. Bush, talked about the Colts versus Tampa Bay. I kind of revised that one a little. I put my comeback was, in addition to that, was the Steelers versus Bengals. It's my favorite one out of the entire thing on that entire slide, by the way. They did. They crossed out my picture. So, good comebacks. Somebody else mentioned Star Wars, the whole thing with, good triumphing over evil, the comeback of that. Walt Disney, he was actually fired from the Kansas City Star kind of newspaper. And according to the editor, he lacked imagination and had no ideas, which is why he was fired. But it turned out well. Albert Einstein, most of us take Einstein's name as synonymous with being a genius, but he didn't always show such promise. Einstein didn't speak until he was 4. He did not read until he was 7. And this caused his teachers and parents to think that he had some kind of delay or was antisocial. Eventually, he was expelled from school, and he was refused admittance to Zurich Polytech. And last one, Dr. Seuss, at least on this slide. Dr. Seuss was rejected 27 times before publishing his first book. Did you know that? Can you imagine a world without one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish? 27 times his first manuscript of a book was rejected. And yet he created hundreds of stories. The young lady in the middle, my good friend in Indianapolis, she introduced me to her story. This young lady had hospice called into her life back in November. And now she is going to school via teleconference. She is continuing to fight, continuing to make a comeback. I also have a good friend. Her son was born with a hole in his heart. He is 16 days older than Jackson. He has a hole in his heart, and he was diagnosed with something called the George syndrome, which means that he has physical and developmental delays, and he also has speech delay. And yet, in the midst of all of that, in the midst of surgery when he was less than 6 months old to fix his heart, he continues to thrive. He continues to do well in school and is speaking with others via sign language. There is just something about a comeback. Comebacks come in all forms of life, whether they're the epic, huge dramatics like we see in Hollywood, or whether they are smaller and somewhat anticlimactic in our own life. Comebacks are in all areas. This comeback can be in a relationship on the brink of breakup or divorce, only to come back and celebrate 25 years of marriage. Comebacks from financial heartbreak and bankruptcy to claiming financial freedom. A comeback from cancer or another illness when just months before the doctor looked you in the eye and said the outcome is not very good. Comeback from surgery to run the fastest 3.1 miles of your life. When 2 weeks post-surgery you were lying on your couch, tears streaming down your face, wondering if you made the right decision and if you'd ever walk right on your foot again. Come back from the struggle of education, being the one who always got the bad grades, who always struggled, and who was always last in class, and yet you pushed through it, and not only did you graduate high school, you graduated college. Or maybe you've had a comeback from a failed business, rising above the odds to recreate your failed product to make it more successful than ever. Apple is a great example of this. Not that I'm biased. But comeback. We all have a comeback story in our life, because at some point in life we are down, and if we haven't been down, we're going to be down, and in order to keep going, life requires us to get back up. And that get back up moment was the moment our comeback began. And one of my most favorite stories in the Bible, and I think it's one of the coolest stories in my opinion, you can have your own, but one of the coolest stories in my opinion comes from the Gospel of Mark. Mark tells a story about a woman whose life is in much need of a good comeback. This woman had been down and out for a long time. She'd been on the outside looking in for years, and she is desperate to find her purpose. And in order to do so, in order to make a comeback in life, this woman did the unthinkable. She placed every ounce of her faith way above any fear she had. And because of this, nothing got in her way. So if you have your Bibles, I invite you to turn to Mark 5. If you don't have them, I will have it on the screen for you. So we're going to kind of stay in Mark 5 for a little while, and then we're going to jump around, not the house of pain. Jump around. What? Sorry. Thought about the crisscross is going to make you jump too, but I'm just dating myself now. So here's the scene. Jesus, he has just returned from sending demons from a man, which is pretty awesome. He just sent demons out from a man, and now he is surrounded by a large crowd who welcomed him from his trip back across the Sea of Galilee. And a man named Jairus has come to him, and he says, "My daughter is sick and dying. Jesus, I need you to come heal her." And so as Jairus is pleading with Jesus, Jesus begins to go to his house, and this is where we pick up our story. 5:24. So Jesus went with him, meaning Jairus, and a large crowd followed and pressed around him. Now, I need you to realize this isn't just a couple people in the crowd. This is a lot of people. A lot of people. There were hundreds, even thousands of people followed Jesus when he taught. I mean, Jesus was like the rock star rabbi, if you can imagine that. People came to see him, and they wanted to be around him. This is similar to us following our favorite celebrity, our favorite athlete, or perhaps preacher. I will be handing out autographs afterwards for anybody who wants one. Just kidding. It's a joke. But the crowd that day was so large and so tight around Jesus that it almost crushed him. I don't know about you, but have you been in a crowd like this before, where it is just so big that you can't move, and even if you can move, it's not fast. And so you don't know who's touching you, where they're touching you, why they're touching you. And again, it's just so tight that there's a moment that it's almost breathtaking. And you feel like you're claustrophobic inside this moment. And so there was a lot of people around Jesus. and they're slowly making their way. And in the crowd, Mark says, a woman was there. This woman had been subject to bleeding for 12 years. So we need to pause for a moment. This woman was bleeding for 12 years. Ladies, you with me? This woman was bleeding for 12 years. I don't know about you, that does not sound like a good 12 years of my life. I don't like the small moment of my own life when this happens. 12 years. I mean, I'm like hungry. Can you imagine like just constantly craving everything in sight and having your emotions do this all the time, and then just how bleh you feel? 12 years of pain, of exhaustion, of dealing with this day in and day out. Are you with me? Guys, it's your turn. Can you imagine dealing with a woman for 12 years? It doesn't, but put it into context. Can you imagine 12 years? 12 years. I am not the nicest person sometimes. 12 years. And again, Mark also goes back and he said she suffered a great deal under the care of many doctors. She'd spent all that she had trying to get rid of whatever was going on in her body, and nothing worked. She did everything she could, and yet instead of getting better, she went to the best doctors in the nation. Instead of getting better, she only got worse. Now, there were probably a lot of people in the crowd that day. There were probably a lot of women in the crowd that day, but this woman was different because she's unclean. And according to Levitical law or religious law, back then, when it was that moment of a woman's life, she was considered unclean until everything was over. Anyone and anything that she touched would then be considered unclean until evening, which means this isolated her from Jewish religious life. She could not come to church. She couldn't be part of a community. She couldn't go into a small group. She couldn't come participate in the band. She couldn't go sit out in the narthex and eat the cookies. She couldn't go out with friends. She can go to the basketball game like I did last night.
Go Skyhawks.
Which means she could not participate in any communal life. She was isolated. She was alone. She had this stigma that followed her. No matter where she went, it was with her for 12 years. Now, I know this is a hard to grasp, the 12-year thing, especially with what she was dealing with. So I want you to imagine having a contagious illness. The stigma that comes with that, and every moment, someone was kind of like, ugh, are you going to get me sick? Because I don't want to be sick. I better not be around you. Okay, so even though her condition couldn't do that to somebody else, I mean, you couldn't contract what she had. Because she was viewed as unclean, everybody thought you could. Again, she touched me, I would be unclean. I couldn't go anywhere for the fear of making somebody else unclean. Again, that was just a huge, isolated moment for this woman. She probably had very few friends. She had been down and out for a long time. 12 years, this woman had lost her life, and she lost her purpose. She was unclean and desperate to be healed. After all of her efforts, Mark said, she only knew of one thing that could possibly heal her. She had heard of this guy named Jesus and how he had healed other people. And so Mark says when she heard about Jesus, she came up behind him in the crowd and she touched his clothes. Because she thought, if I just touch his clothes, I will be healed. So this woman had crawled through the crowd, pushed her way, touching people, making everybody else unclean, risked her life, risked their lives to touch Jesus' clothes. I don't know about you, but if I was dealing with something, I wouldn't think, I just need to go touch Jesus' shirt, and I'll be good to go. I mean, I would barrel my way through, get right in front of him, and I'm like, 12 years, Jesus! fix me now. I'm done. But this woman thought, I'm just going to go touch his clothes. And I think this is really odd. I don't know about you. Because the last time I checked, Jesus wasn't known at the time for his unique clothing line called Healing Touch Apparel. Didn't exist. Nor did Jesus have this kind of like, sign on the back of his shirt saying, if you put your palm here, this is where you're going to be healed. He didn't have a shirt like that. Jesus was known to heal people, yes, touching them physically. He healed someone with leprosy. He healed a paralyzed man through his words. He commanded demons to get out of a demon-possessed person. But no one had been healed by specifically touching Jesus' clothes, at least not yet. So why would this woman come up with this idea? Why Jesus' clothes? Again, it's not like he had magical powers. Not like that. I mean, maybe her condition affected her mind. That's what I think. Maybe she was kind of going a little crazy. I might go crazy if I had to deal with that for 12 years. Rightfully so. But this woman wasn't sick mentally. Physically, she had an ailment. But mentally, she was all there. You see, I don't think she lost her mind. I don't think that she was having mental issues. I think she remembered something. And, I thought about when I was preparing this message, I thought, maybe we just need to not hit this next piece because it's going to take some time and we just need to get to the meat of this. But this connection is so important that we can't miss it, because when we throw this piece out, we miss a lot of what this woman did. And so the origination of the story actually comes all the way back from Numbers 15. This is where we're going to jump around a little bit. So check this out. Numbers 15, 37 to 41. Then the Lord said to Moses, throughout the generations to come, you are to make tassels on the corners of your garment, with a blue cord on each tassel. You will have these tassels to look at, so you will remember all the commands of the Lord. So these tassels aren't meant to be a fashion statement. It's not like, Gucci hanging down. It's not, I'm going to date myself, I about said Tommy Hilfiger, but sorry, I'm not a cool fashion individual. But it wasn't a fashion statement to have these tassels. It was a reminder to the people of what God had done for them and will continue to do for them in the future. It was God saying, look, I want you to always remember that you were slaves in Egypt, and I brought you out of it. I want you to remember when you see these tassels as people are walking, that I parted the Red Sea when you couldn't get across and Pharaoh's army was coming to get you. I want you to remember the power that I have in your life. He said, I want you to remember that I am always. I am always and will be forever in your life. Tie these on the corners of your garment. And so they did. For hundreds of years, Jewish people would wear coats that would have tassels on the corners of their garments, which takes us to the prophet Malachi. Malachi said these words. He said, the Son of Righteousness will rise with healing in its wings. You're probably thinking, why is this important? So the word Malachi used, I'm not a Hebrew scholar, but I am for like 2 words in this passage. So the word Malachi used to represent wings. So the Son of Righteousness will rise with healing in its wings. So the word he used for wings is the same word used in Numbers 15 when God said, make tassels on the corners of your garment. So wings and corners, they're the same word. And that word is kanaf. And so Malachi said, the Son of Righteousness, which is a direct reference to God, the Son of Righteousness will rise with healing in his wings. He essentially said the Son of God will rise with healing in the tassels found on the corner of his garment. And so from this statement by the prophet, a legend, a myth, a story began to grow. And that legend said that when the Messiah came, he will have special healing powers found in the tassels that are on the corners of his coat. What did she touch? She touched the corners, didn't she? She touched the tassels. Not because she was some crazy lady, but because she knew who Jesus was. This is that moment where you're all allowed to say, ooh, that's good stuff. So what did she touch? She touched the tassels. She touched the corners. Jesus, garments. I don't want you to miss this because it's so important. Because she wanted to be healed, she remembered the words from 400 years prior that a prophet said. And she had faith that she could be healed by touching the corners of Jesus' garment, not because he had this special power, but because she knew he was the Messiah. And when you touch the Messiah, you are whole and complete and healed from the inside out. She said, nothing else has worked in my life. I got to go see Jesus because he is the only one. He's the only one that can heal me. And so this woman, she pushes her way through the crowd to get to Jesus. And when she gets to him, she touches the tassels, and Mark says immediately, not like tomorrow, not like, next week or the week after. Like, boom, right there, immediately. Her bleeding stopped, and she felt in her body that she was freed from her suffering. So her condition of 12 years that no one, not even the best of the best of the best, could fix, stopped. And for the first time in 12 years, she was free from everything that hindered her life. She was free from her setback of 12 years. And Mark says, at once Jesus realized that power had gone out from him. And he turned around in the crowd and said, hey, who touched me? Okay, probably not, but I always think, come on, Jesus, you know exactly who touched you. And I love what the disciples say because it's so disciple-like. And I can always imagine them having this quizzical, what kind of expression on their face? Because they say, Jesus, you see people crowding around you. And yet you ask, who touched me? I mean, it's like, really, Jesus? Do you not see what's going on here? There's hundreds of people. Everybody's touching you, Jesus. But he kept looking. He kept looking to see who had done it, Mark said. And then the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell at his feet, trembling with fear, and told him the whole truth. So this poor woman, she's been on a roller coaster of emotions for 12 years, and she finally gets that moment of freedom. And now Jesus wants to know what happened. It's like, can't I just have one moment? One moment. And so she comes, embarrassed and terrified, and rightfully so. She comes trembling with fear, Mark said. I kept thinking, it's one thing to, play the game with your friends, like, I touched you, now you're unclean, sorry. Touched you again. Stinks to be you. You can kind of play that game. I don't know if they did, but I would. But man, it's another thing to touch Jesus. I mean, how do you go and make God unclean? Like it's not possible. And yet she risked the crowd just to do it. And, I got to thinking, I don't know that she came trembling with fear because she feared Jesus. She knew exactly what she was doing when she went to Jesus. I think she feared the crowd and the mob mentality that can ensue around that. Because once she said, hey, this is what happened, everybody around her would have said, you just made us unclean. How dare you? See, I think she feared the crowd. I don't think she feared Jesus at all. Because we shouldn't fear Jesus. We shouldn't fear the one that can heal us. She didn't. She feared the crowd. She didn't fear Jesus. I didn't want you to miss that. However, her faith in who Jesus was greater than her fear of the crowd. We can't miss that either. Her faith in who he was and what he could do for her was greater than the fear that she had of the crowd. Her faith in Jesus was greater than her fear. And so Jesus said to her, daughter, daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be free from your suffering. He says to her, daughter. Not you over there, not woman, not unclean sinner, not outcast. Jesus calls her daughter. There is nowhere else in Jesus' recorded words that he addresses anyone like this. He never calls anyone else daughter but this woman that we know of. He says to her, I don't care what your past has looked like. I don't care that this crowd thinks that you are a sinner of all sinners. I don't care that you are unclean. I don't even care that you touched me as an unclean person. What I care about is you had the faith in what I could do. And you are mine. Regardless of what you've been through for the last 12 years, you are mine. You are my daughter. You are a part of my family. He calls her daughter, and this woman who had been forgotten by society, shunned and outcast, been down and out for who knows how long, Jesus says, you are my daughter. I want to heal you, not just your condition, but I want to heal all of you. And he says, daughter, your faith has healed you, all of you. Go in peace. Shalom. Go in peace. Be freed of your suffering. You see, when our faith is greater than our fear, nothing can stop us. This woman's faith in Jesus was greater than her fear of the crowd, and it didn't let anything stop her from the healing and wholeness that she needed. This woman completely believed that by touching the tassels, the same power that saved the Israelites from captivity, the same power that Malachi spoke of that is found in the wings of the Son of Righteousness, the same power that would in the coming months raise Jesus from the dead, could also save her, heal her, and bring her back. That is the beauty of the gospel. That is the beauty of God, that the same power that had the ability to raise Jesus from the grave and let him walk up out of the tomb, a previous dead man, the same power that took has the same ability in our life when we need to be brought back from the brink of our own despair. The same power that raised Jesus from the dead has the ability to give us our own comeback story. This woman believed with everything she had that Jesus was the Messiah that Malachi spoke of. She believed that her healing was found in the wings of a rabbi from Nazareth. Her faith, even after 12 years of suffering, gave her the strength to go through the crowd. She wasn't worried about what people were going to say at the water cooler or on Facebook or on Twitter, she wasn't worried about any of that. All she cared about was getting to Jesus. So I wanted to share a shirt with you. No, but you can't have this shirt. I'm not going to give it away free because I earned it. And it wasn't cheap either, for the record. So this shirt is one that I got from physical therapy from my foot surgery. And I got it from Wright State Physicians. This is a plug for them. They're awesome. If you ever have any issues, I highly recommend them. They didn't pay me for that. However, there you go. But on the back of this shirt, it says something, and I thought it was really cool. They gave this to me the day that I was done. They said, hey, this is your last session here. You get to graduate. And I was like, ooh, I like graduating. I'm really good at graduating things, especially things that cost a lot of money, apparently. So they said, oh, what size shirt do you wear? And I was like, oh, sweet, I got a shirt. It's a medium. And he said, here you go. Congratulations. Happy graduation. And so I got out to the car, and I was looking at it, and I'm like, yeah, it's really nice of them. Give me a shirt. And I looked at the back, and it says, from setback to comeback. And this was the first time that I ever thought of my recent foot surgery as a setback. And I thought, man, this applies to so much else in life other than my foot. And when they said I graduated, I immediately thought, well, if I graduate from something, that means I'm an alumni, right? I mean, if you're former in the class and you graduate, you're now an alumni of that class. So I'm now an alumni of the Physical Therapy Setback Club. And when you're an alumni, you get to claim a new identity. You can't claim the previous one because you're not there anymore. So I can't claim anymore that I'm in therapy. I can't claim the therapy class. I'm an alumni of it. I can't claim the setback moment because I graduated. I'm an alumni of my setback. I'm an alumni moving into my comeback. You see, when Jesus says to the woman, "Daughter, your faith has healed you," she immediately went from a setback into this beautiful journey towards a comeback. She became an alumni of her condition. When we are on the journey of a comeback from Jesus, with Jesus, not from, we don't come back from Jesus. But when we're in that moment, he gives us a new identity. We can no longer claim the setback as who we are. He says, that's not you anymore. You are your new identity that I've created for you. Live into it. So he gave her a new identity as a daughter of the king. I mean, that's a pretty cool comeback story if I've ever heard one. So I want to take the next few minutes and just kind of give you 3 thoughts on what this woman can teach us about our own comebacks in life. So the first one is, it doesn't happen overnight. I wish it were like this woman, although it didn't happen overnight for her either. It took 12 years for her to make this comeback journey. Sometimes it takes months, years of hard work, and often very painful moments. Our persistence, patience, and perseverance will be tested in these times. But we know that there's a greater purpose on the other side, a much greater purpose. The second is our comeback will require risk and sacrifice. It causes us to step outside our comfort zones and the places that we like to be in. It caused her to risk her own life and the crowd's life that day as she walked to Jesus, knowing he had the answer for her. It will take everything we have and then some to go from setback to comeback. And the last one, the third one, is it will take faith above fear. You see, often we get stuck in our setback mode because we allow fear to nestle itself into our lives. I did this, never, ever, ever, and I will probably continue to do it again. So 2 weeks post-surgery, I'm sitting on my couch because I can't do anything. And so I'm like, you know what? I need to know what other people have had happen after they've had this similar surgery. Reading threads, it's not good. I mean, and so the more I read, the more I heard story after story of people that had something go wrong with their foot afterwards, and that they never made it back to where they were before. And I had all these things, and I was laying on the couch, and I thought, I've made the worst mistake of my life. I was starting to let fear settle itself. And when you can't do anything for 8 weeks but lay on a couch, that's a lot of fear setting in. Often in those setback moments, we allow fear to do that. We let it sink in. We let the I can'ts come out. We let the what if I fail. We let the unknowns creep in, or the fear of, man, this is going to hurt. I don't know that I can bear anymore. You see, fear keeps us lying down. But our faith is the one that tells us to get up and walk. Fear will keep you lying down. Faith says, get up and walk. So in order to go from a setback to a comeback, we need to begin to put more emphasis on our faith and less focus on our fears. We need to put faith in ourselves that we can do what it takes to make this comeback happen. We need to put faith in others around us, that they're there to help us, to support us, to kick us in the pants when we are just having a bad day and say, I don't want to do this anymore. We need to have faith in them that they're going to say, yes, you will. Get up. Let's go. Quit wallowing in sorrow. Come on now. Jesus came back from the dead. You can come back from this. We need to have faith that they will love us, even in the midst of that. Ultimately, we need to put our faith in God that he can. It may be longer than we desire, but through God's power, he is the only one that can truly take us from a setback to a comeback. And I love Romans 8. Paul says, if God is for us, who in the world can be against us? And that who includes us. If God is for us, no one, no thing, no self-imposed thought will ever be against us, because he says, I am here, I'm with you, and we're going to make it through this. Because I'm for you, and I am pulling for you, and I am pushing with everything I have to take you from a setback to a comeback. So I don't know where you're at this morning, but what I do know, I know where you're at. You're sitting right here, but I don't know where you're at with the whole setback, comeback thing in life, but what I do know is that we all have them. There is not a single person in this room that hasn't had some form of setback in their life, whether it's big or small. We are all on the same team in this moment. And if you're not in a setback moment, at some point you will be, because there's going to be more. But what I do know is important is that we need to remember that in that moment, when we put our faith and trust in God and his power, above our fears, above our doubts, he takes our setback and he turns them into a comeback. And he gives us a new identity to live in. So I don't know where you're at. I don't know where what your story is. I don't even know what your setback is. But I do know there's something. There's something that you are dealing with, that you have dealt with, or you will deal with, that God wants to take as a setback and turn it into a comeback. So I challenge you and encourage you along the way to keep Jesus in front of you. Remember the words of Malachi when he said, the Son of Righteousness will rise with healing in his wings. And then in that moment, place your faith as high as you can above any fear that comes in your life, and be the woman who took everything she had and risked her life to get to Jesus, because he was the only one that could provide her with healing and wholeness from the inside out. So may you have a setback that turns into a comeback and gain a new identity. Amen? Amen. We're going to pray, and then we're going to finish with the band. I can't do two things at once, so we'll do this first. God, we thank you for the day that you've given us. We thank you that you are the one that started the whole comeback journey, because you showed us the way. You paved it for us. And you said, you know what? I came back from the grave. You can come back from your own setback in life, because I'm here to help you. Man, we're so thankful for that. God, maybe there's some of us here today that are in that moment of we are down and out. May we feel your presence this morning and know that it does look scary, but if we put our faith and trust in you, that you will pull us out of it. And not only will you pull us out, but man, you'll give us a great comeback story to tell. And we get to live into this new identity that you will create for us. Help us to get there. Give us the strength. Give us the courage to be comeback people. Lord, we know that it is through your power that all of this can take place. So we surrender to you. We surrender our setbacks, our hang-ups, and ask that you just take them. Let us take that next step towards our comeback story. We thank you and love you for everything you are. It is in your holy name. All of God's people said. There is power, amen, in the name of Jesus. He has the ability to heal you, to break those chains that you have been enchained by for the last however long. He has got the ability to heal you from the inside out. May your faith be greater than your fear. And may you seek his name. Amen and amen. Go in peace.